California's recall election is entering its last stretch as early in-person voting is now underway in the state. Voters will decide whether to remove Governor Gavin Newsom from office and who could replace him. 46 candidates are running, and it's only the fourth gubernatorial recall election in U.S. history. Elections officials say turnout is shaping up to reach historic highs. With just a little over a week to go until September 14th, Governor Newsom and the candidates fighting for his job still trying to solidify support.
Businesses are leaving. Middle-class people are leaving. The quality of our schools is declining. Price of living gone up through the roof. Crime is up. Nothing this man has touched has gone right.
Are we going to defeat Trump and Trumpism? Are we going to send a message to Devin Nunes and Mike Huckabee and Rudy Giuliani and Newt Gingrich and Kevin McCarthy? Hell no on this recall.
So for more on this, I want to bring in John Myers. He's the Sacramento bureau chief for the Los Angeles Times. Thanks so much for being here, John. So what issues? Yeah, awesome. What issues are important to California voters this election?
Well, I mean, this is an election that was sparked by the pandemic. I mean, this is, we have had recall efforts against pretty much every governor in modern California history. Most of them have never taken off. We had one that did when Arnold Schwarzenegger was elected in 2003. But this was an election driven by the pandemic, by frustration over the maybe inconsistent pace of how the state was responding, businesses that were closed, schools that were closed. I think some of that, of course, is endemic to the entire country. But in California, we have these rules that allow you to call a special election if you gather signatures from voters. And that's where we are. And really, honestly, this is a race about Democrats in the state, more precisely, the interest level and the excitement level of Democrats. You heard Governor Newsom in that soundbite that you played there, trying to rile up the party faithful. If he gets them out, given their registration advantage in California, he wins, he retains his seat.
So a recent poll by the Public Policy Institute of California shows that he is leading by a big margin among likely voters. But you think that could change by Election Day?
Yeah, that's really what we're all watching, right? I mean, we saw early polls in this race that showed it much closer, that likely voters were more split. And that was a function of Democrats who thought, well, he's going to win, or they had some kind of reason to be apathetic about this election. And if Democrats stayed home, the Republican base voters in California could have made a big difference. That poll suggested that that's not happening right now. The governor seems to be in a good position, but we are in the middle of voting. You said that at the top of this segment. We have ballots that were cast early over the course of a whole month. We have some in-person voting now. As at the beginning of the holiday weekend, we were about 1 in 5 California voters had already voted. We're going to know those numbers are going to go up here in the next couple of days, and we're going to see how big that turnout is. And if Democrats turn out relative to their size, keep in mind, there are 2 Democrats almost for every 1 Republican in California. If they turn out at their size, those polls are right, and the governor keeps his job.
So what are Republicans focusing on, though, in their recall campaign?
They are pretty much, as you heard the leading candidate, Larry Elder, say there in the top of this segment, they are focusing on the fact that they think Gavin Newsom is a disaster, that he is solely to blame for California's problems. I think California's voters probably realize that that's not entirely the way this plays out, that one person isn't that person. But Larry Elder has captured the attention. He is a talk show host out of Los Angeles. He has captured the attention of California Republicans, of the conservative national media, and he is the guy leading on that second question. There are 2 questions on this recall ballot. Question 1, do you want to remove Gavin Newsom? And question 2, if he's removed, who do you want to pick? And Larry Elder is the guy leading that second question, in part because there are no prominent Democrats on that second question. But that is the guy they are focusing on, and he has a very right down the middle conservative agenda here that he says California should adopt.
And he's got a lot of people listening to him every day. So let's talk about the money. How much money is going into this election?
A lot of money. I mean, let's say at the outset here that in California, you win statewide elections with television ads. We are still a place that is dominated by that. So if you look at the money in this race so far, Governor Newsom and his allies have raised about $72 million. They have spent about $36 million, almost about half of that, in the month of August alone on television ads, blitzkrieging, primetime television and everywhere else. If you look at the recall supporters and the Republican candidates, they have about a third of the money that Governor Newsom's people have. And again, they're going to be outmatched. They knew they were going to be outmatched. And so this really is an election of passions. But Governor Newsom and Democrats really want to stoke that passion of their fellow party members to maintain where they are and to keep him in office.
That is a lot of money. Wow. President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, they're going to be going there. They're scheduled to campaign for Governor Newsom. How could their visits benefit him?
Yeah. Well, we know for sure that Vice President Harris is going to be in the San Francisco Bay Area in a couple of days. We keep hearing that President Biden's coming out. Of course, there's a lot on the president's agenda right now, but there's a week left of this election. Again, it's a motivation of the base. President Biden handily defeated former President Trump in California. There's no surprise there in a state as democratically friendly as California is. So this is a reminder to close ranks around Democrats. And I should point out, there are some Democrats, when you look at the polling, who have been unhappy with Governor Newsom and people who probably voted for him in 2018 and would normally vote for him. And so this is, I think, is an attempt to bring the vice president and the president out here to say, you've got to stick with us. You see Senator Elizabeth Warren, who was with Governor Newsom there over the weekend in Los Angeles. This is about bringing that Democratic Party home. That's what they want to do, and insisting that California is on the right track at improving its pandemic conditions.
It's really fascinating, John. And you think about this recall effort, it really has a lot to do with what could be happening going forward. So what do you think it has to do, and tell us about the 2022 races there in California?
Well, I certainly think it's gotten everyone's base motivated. I mean, if Governor Newsom were to lose and a Republican were to win, I think it would be a massive galvanization of Democrats in California, and I think it would spill across the California borders of igniting Democrats in these House races and everything that we will be watching next year nationally. Even if the governor retains his job, I think everybody thinks it has gotten everyone thinking about politics and the consequences of these elections. I certainly think it's going to help Republicans in the state get motivated in some of these congressional races. But, you know, the big question mark for 2022 here and across the country, when you look at a midterm, is redistricting, is the redrawing of political maps after the census data. And, you know, there are places here where new voters are going to be talked to in a different way by candidates. And so this is a motivation, you know, a few months early to start talking about politics and the consequences of politics.
Oh. Well, we're going to see how this plays out in the next week or so. And John Myers, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.